Hello. So today we're going to take a detailed look at the Garmin G1000 unit. So for those of you who might not be familiar with it, the G1000 is a glass cockpit suite which replaces conventional mechanical instruments. It's something which is being incorporated into more modern trainer aircraft. If you're not familiar with these glass cockpits, as they're called, then I'd recommend checking out my tutorial here, where I cover the basics of those. You may also benefit from watching my video about the Garmin G500 GPS unit, because a lot of the functions which that uses can be applied to the G1000 cockpit. So without further ado, let's jump into a plane and get a proper look at this. Okay, so here we are in the plane. Now this is just going to be done in one take. I'm going to try and do it all in one take. It's going to be unscripted, so if I start to stutter or stammer just like that, then bear with me. I'm trying my best here. So we've got the G1000 in front of us now. We've got the primary flight display here and the multifunction display on the right, but you can't really see that in this view at the moment, but we'll see that later on. So what I'm going to do is just start in the top left corner and simply work my way across. So there's several buttons on the G1000 in FSX which are non-clickable. The first button here, the volume, is not, so don't worry about that. Although the next two buttons here relate to the navigation radios and the settings which are up in the top left corner of the primary flight display. So the number in green is your active frequency, and the number on the left is the one that you can adjust. Now you'll notice common sort of elements on all this kind of style of dial or knob here. So there's actually two knobs in one. You've got the inner one there and then an outer one, and they both serve sort of different functions. So the outer knob will allow you to choose the sort of the large number, or the first number in the display there, and then the smaller knob will allow you to change the second one there. So depending on where you click, you can either change the larger number or you can change the smaller number, and of course that goes for minus as well. Now to switch the frequency, you would click on this back and forth button here. You'll be familiar with it from the radio stack previously. You can see you can switch the frequencies back and forth like that. Now to switch between nav 1 and nav 2, there's a third click spot on this dial which is not kind of easy to identify, and that's just at the bottom center of the dial here. If you press that, that allows you to switch down between nav 1 and nav 2 there. So that's how you change between the two. The next button along, you have your heading, which allows you to adjust the heading bug on the heading indicator down here. So works like any other, just left and right. Now if you want the autopilot to follow the heading, you need to jump into the virtual cockpit, because the G1000 in FSX at least doesn't have any autopilot kind of buttons or functions. You have to go back to the old-fashioned autopilot unit and enable the heading holds, the autopilot master switch, and any other autopilot functions that you want on the external sort of autopilot panel there. So you can control the heading, and that will change the bag if you're flying manually, but if you've got the autopilot, that's how you adjust it there. And the same goes for the altitude. Now the altitude again has that kind of larger number and smaller number kind of function to it. So if you click up on the kind of the outer dial, so if you put your mouse over the top right of the dial and keep an eye on the altitude selector, or the altitude selection there, you can see we can go up in thousands and we can come down in thousands, or if we click on the smaller one, we can go up in hundreds or come down in hundreds, and there's no kind of extra button there, so there's no like push to change anything. It's just simply an altitude adjustment there. Next up, we'll have a look at the top right. So you have your COM1 and your COM2 radios. So these are your communications. So this is what you adjust when you're talking to other aircraft, or sorry, not other aircraft, talking to air traffic control. So it's the same thing there. You've got that, which changes the larger number, the inner dial, which changes the smaller number, the button there to change the frequencies. Again, the frequency sort of towards the center of the display will be your active, and to change them, or to change between COM1 and COM2, just hit the bottom center, and that corresponds to like a full button press, sorry, in the actual aircraft. So you push the entire button or the entire dial into the panel to do that in real life. So the next dial here, again, it's a kind of a kind of a 3-function dial. You've got the inner dial, which allows you to change the course on your sort of heading / navigation display there, and then the outer dial allows you to change the barometric pressure. So you can do that there, and then you can also push the button, and I think that allows you to change the course on a secondary thing there. I'm not entirely sure. I do apologise. I'm not exactly sure what the full sort of press does for that button there. So moving down again, you have the range. So down here, we're starting to get into. If you've seen my video on the GPS units, all of these buttons you'll be familiar with. So the range is like your sort of your zoom level there. Now we've got a little bit of a GPS kind of view here. So if we start playing with the range, now the click spot isn't actually on the button itself. The click spots are actually kind of off to the top corners. So if we click up there, we can see that we can change the map, and we can sort of zoom out, and then if we hit minus, we can zoom back in. And then if we look at some of these buttons down here, if we click on the fly direct, you can see that we have kind of there's a mini sort of GPS window here, and this button or this dial down at the bottom is exactly the same as how you would control the GPS unit. So if we now I can't remember how to do it, so if we do that, then we can select various waypoints or various airports that we want to go to. Oops. But you get the idea there. We're always going to go for Inverness, but you get the idea. And then actually what I'll do is I will tune in Inverness quickly, if I can. OP, sorry about this. There we go, Inverness. And then you'll see here that it gives us all the information about Inverness, and then we also have activate. So if we hit enter, we hit activate, and you see on the little GPS display here, or the little inset, that it draws us a little pink line so we can follow the GPS. Pretty cool, huh? So, and it also gives us like procedures page as well, so we can go in and select an approach, and it's just like the GPS unit. Go in and choose all of that sort of stuff, and then we can load or activate it there as well. I'm not going to do that, but yeah, so they have sort of a quick GPS function in there. Now finally, on the primary flight display, or the primary PFD, primary flight display, sorry, we have a few buttons along the bottom here which are known as soft keys. Now if you look here, you can see the soft key, and then you've got little black boxes. So when you press these soft keys, they will bring up maybe more options, and all of these boxes will have kind of more options within them. So we'll start on the left and work our way across. So if we hit inset, basically that controls this little screen that comes up in here. So we have the declutter option here. So that's just like the on the GPS, you can take away various bits of information which are on the display there. So what I'll do is I'll zoom out so we can see a bit more. So you see we have some nav aid information for Kinloss there. If we hit declutter, we have declutter -1, declutter -2, which takes away some of that, and then declutter -3, which gives us just a bare map. And then if we hit that again, that brings back sort of airways and all sorts. And then if you want to get rid of this, we can simply hit the off button, and that gets rid of the screen there. Next up we have OBS, and I'm going to admit I don't know what this does, I'm afraid. Obviously OBS stands for Omni Bearing Selector, but I've not figured out how that interacts with the navigation systems or within the plane there on the autopilot. But what I do know is if you hit the button, it seems to illuminate, so you can seem to just enable it and then disable it in a way. CDI, that allows you to change what information you have displayed on the sort of heading / navigation instrument here. So you can choose between GPS and obviously your nav1 and nav2. So your nav1 and your nav2 will work like VOR indicators, and obviously your GPS again works like a VOR indicator, but what you could do if you're flying in what I'll do is I'll talk about this briefly. If you are going to fly by GPS and you want to fly with the G1000, if you don't have the sort of the nav / GPS switch in this aircraft, what you need to do is change the CDI to GPS and then enable nav on the external autopilot control. And then what will happen is the plane will then go and follow the GPS path from that. And then if you change the CDI and change it back to nav1 and nav2, that will switch it back to navigation radio navigation. And then if you hit nav there, then the autopilot will automatically follow the nav radios rather than GPS. So that's just something to be aware of. So that's how you control whether the system follows navigation radios or whether it follows the GPS route. Now, next up, we have a button for the transponder. Now, this is quite cool. So you have the transponder information here. It says it's on at the moment. I don't know if there's a way of turning it on or off. I don't think there is, but you can adjust the transponder code from this button here. So if we hit transponder, you see that we have an option for VFR, which by default is 1200, or we have an option for code, or we can hit back, which just takes you back to this screen. So if we hit VFR, whatever the code is in there, if we hit VFR, it will just default it back to 1200. But if we want to type the code in, we hit up code, and then we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can just type in 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have our transponder set to 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we hit back twice, that brings us back to this. And now if we want to default that back to the default VFR, we just hit transponder, hit VFR, and it's done. Okay, next button is TMR. TMR, what does TMR mean? I cannot remember, I'm afraid. And ref. Timer and ref. Okay, so some of these controls, or to move between the different options, you come down to your sort of control knob down here. So we have the timer, which we can start. How do we start this? I can't remember. I think if we select the timer and then hit the button there. Start, please. Okay, I'm not sure how to get the timer working, but you can figure it out in your own time there. And then what we have below the timer is we have a way of setting our sort of speed flags on the speed indicator up over here. So we have our kind of best, or our glide speed. We have our VX and VY, which are our climb speeds, and we can turn these on or off, like so. So we can decide whether we want these showing on the speed indicator or not. So we'll turn that off, and then you can also adjust the speed by selecting the speed and then rolling it up or rolling it down. So we select that, and we can turn that off, and then we can adjust the speed. Turn it. I'm doing really bad with this tonight, I'm not sure why. Turn it off. There we go. So you see that removes all the flags from there. And then if you want to get rid of it, you just hit the TMR ref button again. And then nearest is like the nearest page on the GPS unit, so we can see what the nearest sort of runways are there. Oh, sorry, the nearest airports. And I'm not sure if there's a way of bringing up. I think by default this will only show the nearest airports. I don't think we can see the nearest like other navies like VOR stations or NDB stations or anything like that. However, we can find that on the multifunction display, which I'll come to in a moment. And then again, if you want to get rid of that, just hit the nearest button. And there you go. Actually, I wonder if you hit nearest and then hit enter, I don't think... Is that... Let's do a quick experiment here. So if we hit enter and fly direct to... Oh, okay. So you can use the nearest menu here to select a GPS or select an airport to fly direct to. So if we want to go back to Inverness, for example, you just select it, hit enter, and if you go to fly direct, then you'll have Inverness pre-selected in this already. Pretty cool. Didn't know that. So get rid of that now. So that's pretty much everything on the primary sort of flight display panel here. So what we'll do next is look at the kind of the center console here. So a lot of these buttons here you cannot click on. This dial doesn't work, this button doesn't work, and a few down here, but I'll point out the ones that do. So you have your COM1 buttons here, so you can basically enable your COM1 radio and do all of your communication through that. You can select your COM2 radio only, and I thought there was a way that you could select both, but obviously not in this case. So you have a PA button and a speaker button. You can choose to mute your microphone there, so that's pretty cool. High sends, I'm not sure what that means, but you can't click on it. And then you can see here we have buttons for DME, Nav1 and Nav2. And yeah, ADF is you cannot select. So and then every other button you can't select. So you've got the COM1, COM2, Nav1, Nav2, and DME, and probably the main ones that you want to be looking at there. So that's everything for the sort of central console there. That's how you control your kind of radio inputs and what the plane is using for radio inputs and whatnot. So what I'll do now is bring up the multifunction display. Now, if you click on the sort of the GPS button here, that will bring up the multifunction display. So what I'm going to do is just to save you guys from being distracted, is just move that over the primary flight display. So you can see here that it gives us a lot of information about the systems on the plane. So the engine, sort of fuel flow, fuel temperature, all the rest of it. You can control the heading and the altitude and navigation data from the multifunction as well, so it's pretty cool. Same with your comm radios, your course and barometric pressure and everything else there. So let's look at the kind of the dominant display here. So you can see it's the kind of the almost like the nighttime view of the GPS there. And it works pretty much the same way. You have the declutter there, 1, 2, actually we'll bump the range up so we can see a bit more, 3, and you can bring everything back there. What you can also do is if you hit the map button there, you get a few more options. So you have traffic, which you can turn on and off. Now I'm not sure if that works fully with FSX. I've never tested it, but the Garmin G1000 in real life can be upgraded to kind of give you like a traffic information, so you can see other planes popping up on your map and see where they are and what direction they're flying. As I said, I'm not sure if that works in FSX as well. Normally I fly without any kind of AI traffic. So again, that's something you guys can test in your own time. And then if you hit topo there, that basically colours in the map for you, so you can get an idea of sort of the lay of the land, the altitude, and any kind of mountains which might be popping up there. and then of course you can turn that off. So those are and again you have declutter there, so those are the only 3 options that you have when you select map down here. Now the other interesting bit on the multifunction display here is down in the bottom corner. So you can see we have map, waypoints and nearest. Now if you cycle through these, and again if you've seen my video on the GPS unit, you'll recognize some of these views here. So this is where you can have a look at the details of various airports and have a look and pick up all of the information about them. So you've got your map, which is your default, and then you've got your waypoints here. Now if you remember on the GPS unit you had several pages as well, and that's what these little boxes correspond to down here. So yeah, so there's our nearest intersection, Smoky, and then we have Kinnards, NDB, and then Aberdeen VOR. So you can see that we're flicking through, whoops, that's not right. Okay, so sorry, if you use a smaller dial, you can flick through the pages there on the waypoint there. And then if you want to see a list of everything, of the nearest bits and pieces, then you just hit the outer dial, and that will bring up the nearest pages there. If we push the cursor in, we can then run through and select what we want to look at. Now let's have a look here, because I've never noticed these buttons popping up down here. Okay, so I'm not sure. Okay, so if you want to jump between the boxes or the information on the left hand side, you can click on the buttons down below, and you can also adjust the map view when it's kind of centered over over what you're looking at there. So turn topography off because it's a bit difficult to see what's going on there. So you can see if we click on airport, then we can scroll through the airports list. If we click on runway, we can have a look at the different runways available in Inverness. So we've got 2911 and of course the main runway 0523. Then we can have a look through the frequencies and then also the approaches. Let's have a look through the approaches just now. Okay. Oh, okay, I can't figure out how to look through the approaches there, but you can see that the ones which are available are listed there for you. And I think that is about it for let's see, Dundee there. Yeah, I think that is about it for the G1000. So the multifunction display works very much like the GPS. If we get rid of that, we have our kind of primary flight display, which gives us all of our kind of control and altitude and navigation information. And that is pretty much everything there is to know about the Garmin G1000. So the best way to learn it would be to just simply load up a plane which uses this. Do what I do, which is just set the plane heading in a straight line at a set altitude, and then just click the buttons. Just, you know, go through every clickable button, figure out what it does and how to use it, and that's pretty much how I learned how to use this. So I hope that this video helped a lot. In the next video, what am I going to do? I don't know. I haven't planned the next video yet, I'm ashamed to say, but there will be another tutorial kind of style video. So I hope this helped you guys out a lot. If you've watched this all the way through, I do really appreciate it. So many thanks for watching. Take care out there, and I will catch you later.